Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Tuesday the 19th of June 2018. Let's have a look at what's making the political news today. And to start off with, reports from Cabinet yesterday, which was signing off the NHS. Big spending commitment that the Prime Minister Theresa May announced that day yesterday as well. Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, effectively saying to everyone in the Cabinet, including senior Cabinet Ministers and the Prime Minister, that there is no money or little cash to spend on anything else apart from the NHS. What the NHS has done is basically sucked up and used all of the available money that was available to invest into public services. And so as a result, you will expect to see some slightly disgruntled ministers perhaps who had ambitions of propping up their departments with some more spending surplus, or rather some more projects and some more ambition in terms of public spending. Now, Hammond confirmed this yesterday. They told Cabinet that with £394 million a week earmarked for the NHS, England alone, the cupboard is now bare. Now, this was in the context, of course, he was given a free hand by Theresa May to tear up last year's election pledges, if necessary, in order to play for huge increases in the health funding, which I spoke about yesterday. Have a look at yesterday's briefing if you're interested in that. About £20 billion NHS boost. The idea here is by wanting to prop up the NHS, by wanting to really commit to the NHS, Theresa May is detoxifying the NHS in terms of the Conservative Party, not making it just the Labour electoral winner, but actually saying the Conservatives care about the NHS as well. It's, of course, the 70th anniversary of the NHS. But in terms of ministers who are going to be particularly unhappy about this, well, if you've been remembering the reports that we've given, Gavin Williamson of Defence has been particularly prominent in terms of wanting to get more defence spending, more commitment on defence spending from the government. But there's also schools, prisons, police, particularly in the context of violent crime going up in the UK. There will be several other departments which are really going to be lobbying for more and more funding, or rather an increased or something to show that there's some greater commitment to those sectors as well. This very much indicates that the Chancellor is not going to be budging anymore. He's given his big ticket away. The Conservatives and indeed Prime Minister as leaders hedged her money on the NHS as being the big spending commitment she's going to make as Prime Minister. And so this is the one thing that they're going to have to commit to now. Whether that will mean a change in political dynamics within Cabinet as well, now that they know some people will be without, that's an interesting question. But certainly today, that's what's leading the agenda. Next up, though, and this has been making a fair amount of noise, particularly online, but also across the news feeds, is William Hague, former leader, Conservative leader of the party, saying in his column for the Daily Telegraph that it's effectively time to legalise or consider legalising weed, and that the battle or marijuana, the battle to remove it from society has basically been lost. Really significant stuff for a former Conservative leader and very, very prominent voice within the Conservative movement to be saying. Lord Hague said it's deluded to take the view that the drug would be driven off the streets. And this is, of course, in the context of the story that has come up in the past few days of the 12-year-old boy with epilepsy, which was given a special 20-day emergency licence to use cannabis oil. And this was after it had been refused, indeed taken off him and his family when they were coming back from overseas by the Home Office, by the border controls, but then sparked a big debate on legislation and whether medical marijuana should be something that's looked into seriously in the UK, because the impacts of administering cannabis oil had huge positive implications for this boy's epilepsy in terms of the amount of fits he was having a day. And this debate really has rumbled on and seems to have picked up the mood of the former leader. Now, the Cabinet is currently rowing, of course, about whether to permit cannabis for medicinal purposes. This is something that really has actually become quite a significant debate, something which has always been underneath as sort of a what if, but certainly now it seems to be coming at the forefront. However, Theresa May has made it clear, or reports at least have suggested coming through today, that the government will only look into the current system in the context of licences for individual cases. That's on a case-by-case basis, rather than changing the law wholesale, rather than changing the whole law, or looking to in any way do anything more ambitious than looking at person-by-person cases in terms of cannabis and medicinal purposes on cannabis. So reviewing the law is probably pretty unlikely at this stage. But the Home Office again has said that the key government has no intention of reviewing the drug's Class B status either. But certainly this is quite significant in terms of for the Conservative Party, particularly in the movement which can have some very significant hardline views on drugs and enforcement of drug policy. Interesting to see Will Hague, or Lord Hague, making this point. And finally, talking about people of politics of old, David Miliband, of course, who lost out to the Labour leadership to his brother Ed Miliband, former Labour leader. He said basically he no longer wishes to be Labour leader of the party. Now, there's always been rumblings that as David Miliband went off after the the era and Ed Miliband came in, for the Miliband era of the Labour Party, that he would be coming back at some point in order to claim the leadership, as he always had wanted, and to become Labour leader and to lead the party into success. According to the interview with the Times magazine, he said basically this isn't going to happen anymore. No, I went for that. I had my time. I had my chance. We're a party system, and the party's moved on from where it was. Risha requests the rewind button, but it's not going to be effective. That's not verbatim, but that's pretty much what he says. Why is that important? Well, it's an indication, again, of just how far the party's moved in terms of political appetite, away from perhaps what was the Blairite, even Brown, David Miliband era of centrist, New Labour-style politics towards the Corbyn side, which is a further left agenda, something where David Miliband, of course, is not going to be familiar because he totally embodiment of New Labour, having been held significant cabinet positions under the New Labour bracket. And also the extent of his realism about the Labour Party in terms of membership as well. The party has become very different in terms of who's supporting it, who's voting at party conferences, who's voting in party Labour leadership elections, and perhaps he's being realistic in that it's not going to happen for him as an embodiment of New Labour, but certainly interesting that he's made this public admission now more than anything else. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and Twitter, just right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic start to your Tuesday.